Welcome to Legendary Physique. We're so excited today to have Jerry Brainum, guru to the bodybuilding stars, on our program today. Jerry's written over 5,000 articles for all the major bodybuilding magazines. He's even written for Penthouse magazine all over the place and been interviewed also in all sorts of programs and stuff. This guy is the guy I trust for the information, solid information on training and nutrition. Welcome, Jerry.
It's my pleasure, Rich. I'm happy to do it, and I'm happy to be speaking with you again, an old friend, a guy I've always respected over the years, one of the great bodybuilders, if I say so myself. I'm not trying to kiss up to you, just I really feel this way. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to and talk to you about these subjects.
Thanks, Jerry. I hold you in high regard, I hope you know, as the one expert in nutrition and training that I come to for any questions I might have about the latest research in these areas. I certainly don't want to hinder my progress by following old wives' tales and bad advice that appears all over the internet. So, Jerry, I want to take advantage of your expertise and ask you to tell us what you consider to be the 5 most important principles for gaining muscle.
The reason why, the main way to gain muscle is what they call the overload system. You have to constantly stress the muscle, and that could involve adding weight. If you can't add weight, you might want to do a couple of extra reps every so often. You might want to cut your rest time between sets down so you're training at a faster pace. My point is you have to employ progressive resistance if you want to make it. If you use the same weights all the time, you're not going. There's no impetus for the muscles to change. You literally have to almost damage them. In fact, you do have to damage them, and the body compensates the imposed muscle damage through repair and muscle growth, muscle hypertrophy. So the first principle is progressive resistance training. The second principle, and this is very common, and this is a major problem with these YouTube videos, is overtraining. I mean, I've seen videos where they have these whack job guys telling people, making statements that there's no such thing as overtraining. I mean, they're telling people, one guy was telling people to do 3 sets of bicep curls with 15-pound dumbbell and 3 sets of tricep extensions, alternated every night before you go to sleep, and don't eat anything, and do this every night for up to a year. You know what I mean? And he says that'll blow up your arms. I mean, that's just one example, but they're all over the place. I mean, the notion that it's impossible to overtrain is absolutely absurd. It's absolutely absurd. I mean, the thing is, there's a limit, and it's true. We're all individuals. Some people can take a greater volume of exercise than others. You might be able to do 20 sets per muscle and make gains, where if I do more than 10, my muscles stay the same or actually lose size.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to do tons of sets and reps when I was younger, and as I've gotten older, I've had to be smarter about how many sets and reps I did and follow what my body could handle without too much damage.
Well, that's a very good point. It does change with age. Even Frank Zane, I read recently, Frank is training, something like 4 times a week, and his workouts are like a half hour. I mean, I did the same thing. I mean, I remember when I was 20 years old, I was doing a workout that involved 70 sets per muscle, 70 sets, and so, when you get older, you're the one thing that's constant for everybody is your recuperative ability does go down. A lot of it has to do with the connective tissue more than muscle, but the point is you do have to reduce your volume when you get past 40. If you try and train like you did when you were 20, nothing's going to happen. You're just going to be constantly in a catabolic state. So the second principle is don't overtrain. The third one, and this is something that I find a little bit humorous. I mean, I trained at Gold's Gym in Venice, California. You've been there. One of the most famous gyms in the world. I think everybody will agree to that. Now, all right, I train at night. I don't see a lot of people, but what I do see is just hysterical to me because what I'm about to tell you might surprise people viewing this, but 99.9% of the people training at Gold's Gym in Venice do not have the slightest idea of what they're doing when it comes to. I see the dumbest, stupidest exercise, and I keep my mouth shut because I learned a long time ago, don't say anything. I mean, I see people doing like they'll take a dumbbell and do this.
Oh yeah, I've seen that kind of activity in every gym I've ever been in. I even stopped the guy one time and I said, "What's that exercise for? What are you doing that for?" And he said, "Well, I don't know. I saw somebody else do it." And I'm going, I can't believe this guy. I mean, no wonder he's not making any gains.
Yeah, well, I mean, every time, I'll give you just one quick example. It's not that this exercise is wrong, but it is an exercise. Every time I go in the gym, every single night, I'll see somebody doing side bends. They either hold a dumbbell or they hold a barbell plate. And I don't have to ask. I know why they're doing it. They think by doing side bends, it's going to make their waist smaller. They have no concept of what that's working. It's, as you know, it's working the oblique muscles. When you work a muscle with weight, just like that saying, when you overload a muscle, what happens? The muscle grows. It gets bigger. They're doing the opposite of what they think they're doing. They think they're making their waist smaller. And what gets me, here's the part that makes me laugh. I saw a guy doing side bend. Now watch my form. I'm going to imitate exactly how he did. He held the dumbbell. He's going like this. This is what he's doing. I saw a woman load up the leg press with 8 plates on each side, which I can't do it. My knees would be, you know, and I'm thinking, my God. And I look at her legs. She had fairly muscular legs, but they weren't that big. She looked like she weighed 120 pounds. I'm thinking, what is this superhuman going to do? And she puts her feet on the leg press. Richard, her movements were so short that you couldn't even see the weight moving. It wasn't an inch. It was more like a millimeter leg press. You know, and she did all her exercise. Every exercise she did like this. Here's her curls. And she did sit-ups like this. Not even contract. Her whole workout is like this. And you know, I pointed this out to a friend of mine. You know, I said, you know, I was joking. I said, you know, but if you really want to make gains, you have to train like her, and you really make gains. And he said, Jerry, are you being serious? I said, no, of course not. I said, she's an idiot. She has no idea. She's mentally incompetent. I said, that's the last way you want to train. He says, you know, but wait a minute, Jerry. She looks good, though. You have to admit, look at her. You know, she's a black woman. She was very muscular. She looked, not muscular, but she looked like an athlete, right? I said, well, let me tell you something. I said, yes, she looks fit, but guess what? She's been around for 10 years. I've seen her. She has looked the same for 10 years. No change at all. That is her genetic body. Her workouts don't do a thing for her. Don't think that her workouts are giving her that look. If the workouts are doing anything, you would have seen some sign of progress. There has been none in a decade. I rest my case. And I walked away. So, you know, good form. The next one is, I would say, and this is a mistake made by a lot of beginners, again, because they're confused by these videos. They're seeing bodybuilding champion workout routines in the magazine. They start to do these, you know, isolation exercises, you know, pulley curls. They don't have any muscle on them yet. You got to build up the foundation first with basic exercise, bench press, squats. I don't know if you did that. This is what when I did that 3 times a week workout, this is exactly what I did. I did only basic exercise, bench press, squats, bent over rows, barbell curls. Build up the muscle first. Then when you start to get some actual muscle bulk, first of all, people have to understand the first 3 to 6 months of training, all the gains you make are not muscle gains. They're neuromuscular adaptations. You're basically kind of opening the pathway between your muscles and your brain. There's very little hypertrophy. In fact, they just had a study come out just about 2 weeks ago where, you know, some people actually do look like they're putting muscle on after, let's say, a month of training. I'm talking about ranked beginners. So they tested it. It wasn't muscle. You know what it was? It was edema. It was a little bit of fluid retention. It wasn't actual muscle. There was no change in the actual muscle. That doesn't happen until after about 3 months of training. So, in other words, to think about it, to start doing pulley curls and stuff when you've never, it's a joke. It's a freaking waste of time. Do your basic exercises, build up the foundation. After about 6 months, if you want to add some refining exercises, that's fine, but never neglect the major, let's say, large muscle exercise group. I think you'll agree with that if you really want some muscle. Do you agree with that statement?
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I was only training 3 days a week after I'd even won Mr. South Texas and Mr. Southern States. It wasn't until before the Mr. Texas that I started just doing a split routine and training at least 4 days a week and eventually 6 days a week because it was just too much to do in one night. I was doing like 3 hours at a time, and I don't think you can really make good progress or the best progress unless you cut your workouts to 45 minutes. If you're training hard enough and fast enough, that's all your body can take.
I would guess that you put on a hell of a lot of muscle on that 3 day a week. Am I right? You probably did it.
I gained 40 pounds while I was in college. That's 10 pounds a year, just working out 3 days a week.
40 pounds of muscle is tremendous, seriously, but all right, the next one is this is kind of a little bit of advanced routine. Let's say you've been working out 6 months and you notice that some of your muscles are not responding as well. Everybody has weak points. A very common weak point, for example, is calves. A lot of people, if you're not genetically blessed, the calves aren't that great.
Yeah, if you're not Chris Dickerson, huh?
Right. So, in that situation, and the magazines have trumpeted this for years, but I do agree with this. If you're interested in bodybuilding or physique competition, or if you're just interested in having a symmetrical physique that looks good on the beach or whatever, I would say to work your weak muscles first in the workout. Like when I trained my legs, my calves aren't that great. I mean, they're better than some people, but they're not, I wouldn't call them exceptional. I always train my calves before my thighs because, first of all, they were not really strong muscles. They weren't a strong muscle for me. And second of all, my thighs, I worked them so hard, squats, all those things, that if I tried to do calves after thighs, I couldn't forget it. I couldn't even lift up the weight. So that's that fifth principle is work your weaker muscles first. And I add one quick one real fast. One more is ignore the bodybuilding magazine workouts. And this is almost embarrassing me to say because I wrote for magazines for 35 years. Most of the routines you see in the magazines are fake. When I wrote for the magazines, I was insistent on writing actual routines. I was asked to make up routines to match the photos. Like there was one guy I remember who, when it was being photographed, the photographer said, I want you to do a certain type of lateral raise, for shoulders. And the guy said, well, I don't do that exercise. And I remember the photographer said to him, well, Joe wants you a picture of you doing that because he likes the way you look in that exercise. See, I never subscribed to that type of lies and misinformation. I don't care what I wrote the truth. Unfortunately, a lot of the other writers didn't, and it's gotten worse and worse over the years. The workouts in the magazine are not good workouts to follow. Ignore them. So I think those are the most important principles for gaining muscle as far as working out.
Jerry, I think that was excellent advice and information, and I hope our viewers take it to heart on their way to their own legendary physique. So Jerry, tell us about your monthly newsletter at appliedmetabolics.com.
My philosophy of this newsletter is I want to give solid evidence-based information, no crap. It has no ads. I'm not associated with any supplement company. And I'm trying to focus on stuff that's not appearing all over the internet, kind of off the road stuff. I mean, I'm giving basic information for people that don't know this stuff, about protein and how to eat and how to prepare, nutritionally exercise for if you want to compete in bodybuilding or physique. I'm covering that stuff too. I'm also covering anti-aging, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, men, women, who are interested in testosterone, estrogen. I'm talking about ways to do that safely so you don't get any kind of medical problems. And the key point I'm trying to make here is that there's other publications, but they usually only cover one subject. Some of them cover nutrition, and they do it well. Don't get me wrong. They do it well. Some of them cover exercise, but I'm the only guy that's covering the waterfront. I mean, I cover about 10 different subjects.
That's exactly why I subscribed to Jerry Brainum's Applied Metabolics newsletter, because I was tired of the self-appointed gurus on the internet who propagate bad advice. Instead, I wanted scientific evidence-based information on nutrition and training, and Applied Metabolics gives me just that. So if you want the best scientifically based advice on nutrition and training, do like I did and go to appliedmetabolics.com and subscribe to Jerry Brainum's newsletter. I guarantee you will not be disappointed if you want the best up-to-date information available. Thank you for joining us for part 1 of our 4-part series of interviews with Jerry Brainum. Join us next week for the 5 myths of training. You don't want to miss it.
Sponsored by Phoenix Performance Fitness Center. Mention my name, Richard Baldwin, for half off enrollment on any membership plan and 10% off any personal training package.